Berman Golf podcast, where we are helping golfers over the age of 60 increase distance off the tee so that they can hit shorter irons into the green. Yeah, baby. You can visit us at bermangolf.com for more information and get ready. This is going to be a fun one. And we're rolling, baby. We are back with the Long Balls Golf Podcast. My name is Dr. Jake Berman. I'm here with my co-host,
John Cermak.
What is happening? Thank you so much for tuning in today. Hope you guys have enjoyed the first few episodes that we have put out so far. We've talked about a lot about how we have started focusing on the physical aspect of the golf swing, specifically for golfers over the age of 60, and how focusing primarily on the physical aspect with golfers over the age of 60 has been giving those people the greatest overall positive impact on their golf game.
Yeah, so we were talking about the 4 pillars first, and then we went in depth into the one that we focus on the most, which is the physical aspect. Basically, if you're able to increase the tire pressure on that pillar in the sense of the metaphor of the fast car or the race car, you'll be able to actually translate those improvements all over the other pillars and improve your golf game as a whole.
Right, so let's just do a quick recap of what we were talking about last time. Well, actually 2 times ago, because I recorded one last time when we couldn't get our schedules to match. So I guess it was 2 episodes ago where we first talked about the 4 pillars of golf. So the way we approach golf performance is we look at your golf game essentially as being composed of 4 pillars. And we used an analogy of those 4 pillars as 4 tires on a race car. If you want to get optimal performance out of that race car, you should have equal and optimal air pressure in all 4 tires. So we talked about the technical pillar, the mental pillar, the physical pillar,
and the strategic pillar. And the vast majority of golfers, at least amateur golfers, spend the most attention on the technical pillar, right? Yeah, so it's basically the ones that as a professional player you go after 4, but realistically, amateur players who don't have the time or the investment capability to perform at that level or to have the trainers, the coaches, and all that, they'll hyper focus on the technical aspect, which means that they'll go to the range, get a lot of lessons, and they'll neglect their bodies, they'll neglect the mental side, they'll neglect the strategic side, which is also so important.
Okay, so just one quick example of each pillar. The strategic side is probably the easiest pillar or tire to increase the air pressure out of all 4 tires, because strategic could be something as simple as I hit a drive 200 yards off the tee, and if there is an hazard up there at 200 yards, I probably shouldn't hit driver. I should probably hit an iron or even a wood, just something that doesn't put me into danger. So that's a strategic decision. So that's one example of strategic. Mental is the hardest 6 inches in golf, right?
Between your ears.
That's the mental pillar. That's the biggest difference between people who are golfing on Thursday and Friday versus Saturday and Sunday. The ones that make the cut is the mental pillar. Generally, the people on tour all have more or less the same physical, technical capabilities, strategic capabilities. So they generally have equal physical, technical, and strategic capabilities. The biggest differentiator between the top 5 golfers in the world versus the rest is the mental pillar, right?
Yeah, that's right. So basically what you see is in the top 100, usually 100 to 20, they're extremely good players. But that last 20 percent, or the top 20 players, those are the guys who are always winning. Those are the guys who are always making the cuts, and they're fundamentally the ones who are leading the pack. And their mental capacity or their mental ability, or if you want to put it into tires and a race car, their mental tire is closest to optimal inflation compared to the rest of the 80. So usually the mental ability will take you an extra step in the professional environment.
Right. And we're talking professional people on TV, not the average Joe, not the amateur golfer. So there's an example of strategic, an example of mental. Now we've got an example for technical. That's what everybody knows. That's your golf lessons. That's your swing planes. That's going out to the range and working on attack angle, all these other names and things.
Swing path,
Yeah.
Compression, all these things that coaches talk about, which in some cases for our, 50, 60, 70-year-olds, most coaches want them to get into different positions. They want them to do different things, but because of their, physical limitations, they just can't. And that's basically where we come in. We help them, maximize their physical ability so they can perform to the closest to possible optimal level.
So I want to come back to what you just said right there, right after we finish the fourth pillar. That's the physical pillar. This is the one this is of the 4 tires on the race car. This is by far the one that has the lowest amount of air pressure. It's the most neglected tire on the race car, the most neglected pillar out of the 4, because it's hard. It's hard work to work on your physical aspect. I mean, you have to go and you have to work hard, but you have to work hard on the right things. So that's an example of the physical aspect, but I do want to come back to that technical aspect because especially for golfers over the age of 60, there's so many physical limitations that when they go to a golf coach, the golf coach can see that they've got hip range of motion limitations. So what do? They ask them to open up their stance or turn their foot a certain way so that they can get a full backswing. I'm doing air quotes right now, so quote unquote, a full backswing. So when that 70-year-old man comes to see us and he sets up to hit the golf ball and he's got his right foot, his back foot way open, so I guess it's technically his hips are closed to the target, right? Technically the hips are closed to the target if the right foot is really open.
You're setting up for a draw, basically. So what?
Well, if you're good, if you're a good golfer, you're setting up for a draw. That's the stance to set up for a draw.
But it's just what we call a band-aid because they're just fixing something in order to be able to do something else, but they're not really taking care of the core problem, which is their lack of physical ability.
Right. So the reason why I brought that up is because the golf coaches are asking these older gentlemen to do that with their back legs so that they could get a bigger backswing. However, that completely changes everything, right?
Yeah.
The only thing that does is it helps you have a greater compensation.
Exactly. So what we mean by Band-Aid is just a quick fix. So if you can't do this, we'll get you to do this other thing that will try to get you there. The problem is that you're just fixing one mistake with another. You're not really helping the player become better. You're not really taking care of the actual problem or the actual deficit in your swing. You're just basically creating a patch that will basically not last, and the player will come back to you frustrated because he was able to do it one lesson, and then the next few lessons he won't be able to do it, and when he goes out in the course, he'll shoot the same score, even probably a worse score. So it's this like cycle of just like patching one thing with the next, and then you're just creating all these band-aids and you're really compromising the player's integrity or his actual ability.
And one thing that I do want to say is we are not trying to say that golf coaches are doing it wrong. I'm not trying to say that at all. We're not trying to talk crap about golf coaches. We're not trying to talk crap about golf philosophy. What we are trying to say is that there's an easier way. What we just spent the past 5 minutes talking about, that's called working harder, not smarter. That's saying, okay, this piece of metal is broken and I'm going to use duct tape to fix it.
Exactly.
If you're trying to use duct tape to essentially weld 2 pieces of metal together, it might work for a minute or a second or a minute, but it's probably not going to last long.
It's like when you're putting duct tape on a boat. Eventually it's going to sink. That's not the right way to patch a boat.
Yeah, so getting back to the physical pillar, this is the tire out of all 4 tires that has the least amount of air pressure. This is the pillar that people tend to neglect the most because they think that if they go drop $3,000 or $5,000 on a new set of golf clubs or $2,500 on a new driver, that's going to fix the problem. But it really doesn't.
No, it basically just, like I said, like you're just getting into this crazy cycle of just patch after patch, and you're not really taking care of the core, which is how do we get our players to be able to move the way their coaches want to? So we're talking about coaches are great. Coaches help players, improve. How do we help coaches by really helping their players be able to get into the positions they want them to get into? Meaning, how do we help players actually increase their physical attributes so they can do exactly what their coaches want them to do? So we help these 50, 60, 70-year-olds move or get into the positions that they need to get into. We're going to make professional PGA coaches, we're going to make their jobs easier because they're going to have players who can actually do exactly what they need them to do, and they're not going to patch them. They're essentially going to teach them what they need to learn to become better players.
That's really important to know there, or take note there, because that's one of the biggest things that we experienced when I just did this 12-week program, on-site program at Bears Paw, where the vast majority of the 9 members that went through the program with me had been taking golf lessons with the head pro there. And they've been doing it for years. And it wasn't until we went through this 12-week program where I'm talking with the pro and he's like, yeah, I've never seen Tom move like that before. I've never seen Pete be able to get the attack angle that he's able to get now. Like, I've just never seen it. We had been talking about it for years, but I've never seen him be able to take an inside-out club path. And it wasn't until we were able to address the physical component that it made the head pro's job so much easier, because now he can work on the technical components the right way instead of working on Band-Aids or compensation techniques.
So basically what happens is that once you start performing better on the physical side, that those improvements are going to trickle into everything else. It's what we're talking about, for example, Jordan Spieth's game, where we know he's an excellent putter. Probably one of the best putters on tour. Yet, for the last few years, now he's making a comeback, obviously, but for the last few years, he wasn't putting that great. And that trickled into every other aspect of his game. He started putting pressure into his driver, into his irons, into his wedge play, because he wasn't putting freely. The same thing happens with our players. If we get them to move and we get them to do what their coaches want them to do, and we get them stronger and more physically capable, then that is going to trickle into their mental side, because they're going to feel more confident. That is going to trickle into their strategic side, because they're going to be freer to just swing and attack the golf course in a very different way. And that's actually going to improve their ability to play and increase their happiness and increase their capacity for enjoyment, right? So the physical side is really going to trickle into every other tire, or every other pillar is going to maximize your players or our clients' capacity to play golf.
I really like that. That's a very good point, because I was talking with a club fitter once, and he was talking about how he decides on which club that he wants to use, whether he's going to use this stock club versus the upgraded shaft that's $150 more. And he said a really good point, and I really enjoyed it, because it was a very honest, and he had integrity to say this, is what I'm trying to say. He goes, why would I ask this 75-year-old man to buy this upgraded shaft when he doesn't need it? Because if I sell him a $5,000 set of clubs, it's not going to change his game. If he's a 95, if he shoots 95, if he's a 20-25 handicap, just because I sell him a $5,000 set of clubs, that's not going to make him a 10 handicap. It's not going to change his game that much. He's got to work on the physical component of it, because who cares what club you have in your hand if you can't swing the damn thing?
And that exactly happened to me a couple of weeks ago. So you know how you got fitted and you have your brand new driver, right?
Yep.
And I tried it out. We went out to play, and I absolutely loved it. So it's like, I'm going to go buy the same driver. So I go and I go through the fitting process, and I start hitting, same driver, and I start hitting my driver and start bringing comparables. And I wasn't gaining more distance. I wasn't gaining any really reasonable, like stats for me to change drivers or make the investment to buy a new driver. And that's when it hit me again. Like, maybe my driver doesn't need to change. Maybe if I want to hit it better, I need to start working more on my body. Maybe I need to start going through, the processes that we talk about so I can maximize my physical pillar, and I can start, influencing, I can start trickling into all those other aspects so that when I go back and I, go into that technical strategic side where I want to change my clubs to improve, I'll be able to maximize that improvement. But that will only happen if I go through the training and if I actually train my body to be better.
Great point. And to give everybody listening some full context, because maybe you didn't hear the first episode or not, but Jan is a very good golfer. Jan should be shooting scratch every single time he plays. The challenge is right now, Jan is a full-time MBA student. What do full-time MBA students do for the vast majority of their day?
Study and eat Cheerios.
They sit.
Exactly.
Full-time grad students in general spend the majority of their day sitting. If you sit the majority of your day, there's no way that you're going to be physically in decent enough shape to shoot scratch. You just can't do it.
Yep.
So you technically, you're very sound. I mean, we just played not too long ago, and technically, you can pull these shots out. You can fade it. You can draw it. You can pinch it down. You can put the backspin on it. You can do all of these things technically. But what happened on the 9th hole?
I get tired, and I'm not able to repeat those shots that you just mentioned because my physical ability or my tire is just. So it might start inflated. It might start at a good, inflation, but it's like it has a hole in it. So I start losing pressure as the round goes, and by the time I get to that back 9, my legs are gone. My hips are gone. My core strength is gone. So I really can't use the ground as support. I really can't push off my right side. I really can't do all these things that I need to in order to keep that, momentum going and keep shooting those scores like pars or birdies. And if that happens to me as a young early 30s guy, I could only imagine what goes through the mind of a 60, 70-year-old when they're on the 3rd or 4th hole and their physical tire is almost all gone. Like they're down to like the bare minimum. It's quite the challenge.
And what do? They just try harder.
Yeah.
Let me swing harder.
And then they start skipping it. They don't hit it. They just skip through the fairway. So it's very hard to really put yourself in the position of a 50, 60, 70-year-old. Like these people, like our clients, are still very competitive. They have goals, they have dreams, they want to perform better, they want to play better. But there's a lot of frustration that comes in from, hey, like I go see my coach 3 times a week, can't do what he's asking me to do, can't play the way I want to play. Back hurts, hip hurts, knees hurt. Like I can't really perform to the level that I want to perform because I'm extremely limited by my body. And even though they know it, they just don't want to change that. They don't realize that, hey, if you're limited by your body, maybe that's what you should be working on, which is physical side.
Well, maybe it's not that. Maybe it's that they just don't know. Maybe they just don't know how much better their game would improve if they did focus on it. Because, like you said just a minute ago, the vast majority of the clients that we work with, they're very successful people.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about retired CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, people that have owned their own businesses, people that have done amazing things in this world. And now they're retired living in Naples with the ultimate dream of golfing 3-4 times a week and being competitive in the club championship and the member and the member guest and all these tournaments that happen every year, but they physically can't hold up. I mean, technically they're okay. I mean, these are people that can shoot very low scores, but they can't do it consistently because their bodies just give out on them. And it's not until we shed a light on it or shine a light on it and say, look at how weak this is right here. And like, oh my gosh, and they attack it. Like they just attack it and then they go crazy and actually fix that problem. And then within weeks, they're going, I haven't felt this good after a round of golf. I can't even remember the last time I felt this good. I mean, I don't know if I ever felt this good after a round of golf. I feel like I could play 36. I feel like I could play 36 day after day after day.
Or the one that I won the club championship, or I won the Sunday league, or I took all my friends' money. That's the most common one, because they're the ATM for a while until they come to us, and then they start taking all the money from their friends, because it's just we start working with them and we start changing them, and essentially these are type A drivers. These are very competitive, successful people for the most part, and they just like to win. They love to win. So when we get them to move the right way and we get them to really get stronger and more physically capable, it's like a switch turns on in their brain and they get hooked on it and they really want to improve. And like I said before, like it trickles into everything, Their confidence just skyrockets.
It's funny you say that, because, it's very rewarding when one of our clients comes back and says, I won the club championship. Yeah. By the way, one of our Bears Paw members, or one of the people that was going through our golf performance program at Bears Paw, he won the club championship. One of the other ones that was going through our program came in second. Coincidence? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. But it's more rewarding when one of our clients comes in and says exactly what you just said. I took all the money yesterday. I took it all. I have not done that in years.
Yeah.
I'm usually the ATM. I'm usually the one paying out. My wife is always saying, what the hell? Why are you quit playing in that group? But I took it all yesterday. And that's very rewarding.
I think that's one of the greatest parts about golf, is that we tend to forget that it's a very competitive sport. People think that just because you're a 50, 60-year-old, you're not competitive anymore and you're just playing for fun. I gotta tell you, these guys, they don't play for fun. They're ruthless, man. They'll take your house and everything away from you. They're out to get you, and it's fun because they still have that competitive fire in them. So when we do what we do and we help them out, it's just, you can see the transformation. It's just absolutely amazing.
That's great. I mean, let's wrap things up. We've been talking for a while. I think we should wrap things up. And let's wrap up with some very tangible take-home messages where really listen to your body. I was just talking to somebody yesterday on the phone, somebody that hasn't come in to see us, just calling, asking for more information. And I was talking to him on the phone, and I said, because his back gave out on him last week. And I said, okay, why don't you come in and let's get it fixed? And he goes, well, it's getting better now. I said, okay, is it back to 100%? And he said these words, and it's so funny because I can resonate with it. I can empathize and sympathize because I used to say the same thing. He goes, well, it's back to my 100%. And I said, what does that mean? And he goes, well, it doesn't hurt anymore. It's just sore. I can do everything that I want to do. I can feel it. It's just sore. And I said, okay, so that's not 100%. He goes, no, it's not 100%, but it's good enough for me. You take that guy and you get him moving the right way so that he can finish a round at a literal 100%, feeling no pain at all, that is the game changer. No soreness at all, that's the game changer, because what's going to happen is when you can finish a round without pain or soreness, the ball's going to go farther. The ball's going to go straighter because you're using your body better. So I don't really care about the pain, whether or not you have pain or soreness at the end of the round. I care more about the effect of not having pain at the end of the round, and that is better scores, longer balls.
Happiness,
competitiveness, satisfaction.
Your friend's money.
Your friend's money in your pocket. That's the best. Cool. Well, I really appreciate you guys listening. Stay tuned. We're going to try to keep these things coming out on a regular basis. We're going to try to keep sending out valuable content. If you guys have any questions or anything that you guys want us to talk about, email me at drberman@bermanpt.com. Comment on any of our social posts. Message us, send carrier pigeons or smoke signals, whatever you need to do, and we will try to get to your questions. Cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. See you guys. Thank you very much for tuning in this week. For more information, please go to bermangolf.com. That's B as in boy, ERMAN, bermangolf.com, and check out a ton of stuff that we have there. Or even better, go to our socials, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. We're even on TikTok. Check us out everywhere. We've got tons of content going out every week. And please give us a thumbs up. Comment on the videos. Let me know what your questions are. Try to shoot holes in this. I'll do whatever I can to help you out the best that I can. Thank you, guys.